Well, of course, next week we celebrate Heritage Day, and the issue of statues is an important one. To discuss, we're joined by historian Professor Pitika Ntuli. Thank you for being with us, Professor.
Thank you, Francis.
So this is a nice case study. Martinus Steyn, the statue up at the Orange Free State University, he died in 1902, so a long time ago, a different time. How do you deal with that history, that statue built in 1929 in modern South Africa?
I think what it tells us is the power of statues, the emotions that statues raise. And this issue keeps coming over and over again as to what do we do with the statues that represent a divisive South Africa.
Yeah.
From where I am, because I am an artist, I divide between what the statue politically stands for and what the artist created. It's a work of art, and it's beautiful, and it conveys those messages, however terrible those mistakes are. From what one sees there is that a resolution was taken that the statue should be relocated.
Yeah.
But then it is not relocated. These things are very, very, very emotional. But we cannot live in a place where we do not have any statues, because we have got visual language, we've got all kinds of languages. And these statues manifest a particular language, a particular ideology, a particular historical moment.
So what you're saying is we keep the art, or you keep the statue, but not necessarily on the Bloemfontein campus?
Yeah.
If the students are offended by it.
The general discussion that we had at Freedom Park, when different organizations and people were called as to what do we do with the statues.
Yeah.
That was organized by the Department of Arts and Culture.
When was this? Because we saw 2015, roads coming down, a lot of statues being defaced, and a lot of debate then.
Yeah, that was, I think, about 2 years or so ago.
Yeah.
But the only problem in South Africa is that you initiate things. We are plagued by a disease of continuous discontinuity. You set up something, we are going to talk about this thing, we are going to do this thing, structures are not actually being created, and everything falls up. And as this thing does, divisions in society really take place. From where I actually stand, what I've said before is that when you look at the statue of Paul Kruger, I remember what Paul Kruger said, that whether we like it or not, freedom shall always rise in Africa. Paul Kruger himself was fighting an anti-colonial war, although he was oppressing other people. So many of these instances, what did Martinus, the president, stand for? What are his own words? Was he as bad as they say that he really was? Or are we looking at him in terms of the entire political atmosphere that was taking place? But at this particular moment, I think the University of the Free State has got to resolve these things before it splits people. Because once the splits come, they become again other racial issues. But from what one looks at, there are black people who say it must stay. There are white people who say it must go. I think the sooner the government takes up a clear kind of a resolution, we are going to find ourselves at loggerheads with each other.
Well, you say there were those talks and then they went nowhere. I mean, did any sort of consensus emerge about controversial statues? So there's still Paul Kruger, I think Louis Botha. Where do they go? Do you keep them? Don't you? Was there any sort of general consensus that we could maybe use?
Yeah, there was a general consensus. General consensus was that those statues that are not wanted are going to be relocated. The spot is going to be found where you're going to have a sculpture park. And in that sculpture park or statue park, people can go and see all of these statues that have been removed. But what we do is that we don't talk about what really replaces those. It's just get rid of this, destroy this, but no replacement.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
So the statue park is interesting. So it's a way to keep the art
Yes.
and to sort of keep the sweep of history, because some people say we shouldn't forget these figures. I mean, they were a part of our history, but now you're no longer sort of hailing them in a very prominent spot on campuses, say.
Yeah, I mean, the way this
You're
thing,
giving them a different place, I guess.
yeah, the way this thing actually goes is that very soon people are going to say, let's remove the whole of the Fort Tracker monument.
Yeah.
What would be the? I mean, what would be the difference? Removing the statue of Paul Kruger, or remove this? But maybe the Fort Tracker walk they cannot be, because it's been declared the national things. Either the government declares all statues, natural heritage, or proceed to put them in a space where they have to be, spayed, rather than start initiative of the things and then dropping them and leaving them like that,
yeah.
and then lead to what we're actually seeing in here, tensions amongst people who are in the same institution.
Yeah, and should the prevailing sort of sentiment of students of that institution decide? How do you decide what comes down and moves to the statue park?
Yeah, one of the students there was saying the majority has spoken. The entire student body, the SRC representing all the students, are saying that statue oppresses us.
So go with the majority.
Yeah, let's go with the majority.
What would you say to people who say these statues have no place in South Africa, no place even in a statue park? These were colonialists. And I mean, Martina Steyn, I don't want to speak out of turn. I understand he was a Boer fighting against the British, but neither side at the time was questioning the sort of racial sentiment that prevailed. Do you judge them for that now, or do you accept they were products of their time as well?
No, they were product of their time, and the artists that made those were product of their time. And then I cannot agree with anybody who says that we do not want those statues, that the statues to be destroyed. That would be a totally uncivilized and ill-advised thing. The only thing is that government, rather than just introduce things and leaving them dropping, in the end, sets very, 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 very wrong, precedences. We should say, as what was agreed there, identify a spot, put those statues in there, protect them, make sure that they're in there, train people who are going to answer questions as to whether who made this statue, who was this person, where have we come from, and where are we actually heading to? Well,
let's end with that. You said what replaces them. What's your view?
You know what? I don't want to plug these things. I make statues. I've got 7 more than life-size statues at Melrose Park today. That speaks to our things. Today, just only about 30 people from some white school, came in to visit those places. I was spending time with them there, although they are temporary. People love these things. People want to see, these. But as South Africans, we need, I think, to come back to identify, to define who we really are. We talk of social cohesion, we talk of all of these things, but those things only occur with one section of the people and not with the people. There are no structures, really that stimulate this, discussions.
All right. Thank you for your time this evening. And that was historian Professor Pitika Ntuli.